The main question on everyone's minds after all these crazy developments in the story is simple. Who in the world is going to be able to stop Sukuna if he continues to grow stronger than he already is? The protagonist group is already against all the odds, and with the absence of Gojo, at this point, Sukuna might just triumph over everybody. This is the generation that Gojo left behind, and we have to be better than this. For the honored one to happily die with no regrets and drop this task in the laps of his students, Gojo clearly sees something that we don't in this ragtag team of misfits. Although the controversy surrounding Gojo goes deep, no one can deny he's brought Sukuna to his lowest point in the series, seeing no choice but to resort to his one-time use reincarnation technique that leaves Sukuna vulnerable to death for the first time in the series. Kashimo also contributed as a sacrificial lamb to display Heian-era Sukuna's massive strength, and also force him into that transformation to begin with. Plan C, Higuruma Hiromi, was a failure. Even after his curse technique powered up from death, Yuji was unable to finish the job, and Maki Zenin, one of our gang's heaviest hitters, is completely absent for what seems like no reason. Okotsu Yuta has finally arrived, but it's already unclear how he scales to Sukuna, and Hakari, who is another one of our shining stars, is too busy fighting Arame to help out. Where do all of these characters fit into the final battle with Sukuna, and how exactly do they rank in terms of likelihood of getting a killing blow on him? In this video, I want to discuss all my thoughts on what I've comedically dubbed the anti-Sukuna defense force, and find out who our real MVP in this battle will be. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to continue to see more content like this in your feed, and most importantly, thank you for watching. Now that Sukuna has officially been given authority over the Great Merger with Tengen, it can no longer be questioned if Sukuna is the endgame villain or not. Kusakabe said it himself, that even if they had taken out Kenjaku and failed with Sukuna, he would have taken living in a country with a demonic king reigning than a nationwide terrorist accomplishing his goal. However, it would seem Sukuna is going to enact the Great Merger with Tengen for the same reason Kenjaku was, just because he'd like to see what happens and maybe fight it. Considering Sukuna's not even sure if anyone from the defense force can even offer him a real battle, it's not out of character for Sukuna to hunt for the best challenge he can find until he's satisfied. This means that with Kenjaku out of the picture, all eyes are now left to focus on Sukuna. Not only will we lose Megami if Sukuna wins, and be plunged into the dark ages of Jujutsu, now every single citizen of Japan is at risk of being transformed into a cursed spirit. Eventually, this threat will reach the world. Whether Sukuna conquers the Great Merger, or for once in 1,000 years, the king meets his match, as there's no doubt in my mind if the Great Merger is able to defeat Sukuna, the whole planet's doomed. If we don't kill Sukuna right here and now, it's over. There's no time to go back and train after this and try to pick up the pieces. Sukuna is going to kill every Culling Game player, which includes members of the task force. Failure is not an option, which is why it's unfortunate when you look at all the help we have left fighting this battle. Let's make this clear and get it out of the way. Momo Nishimiya, Kirara Hoshi, and Kusakabe are all people we cannot count on for anything. Kusakabe, although a great leader, is lucky to have survived his last dismantle attack, let alone if he can create that luck to live through a second one. And both Kirara and Momo are staying away for a good reason, because a flick of the wrist from Sukuna might be enough to turn them to dust. However, there are lower tier sorcerers still who offer much more contribution to the battle than them, and that's Mei Mei and Wee Wee, who despite their want to stay as far from the actual battle as possible, are both heavy assets to the team in strategizing and support. Mei Mei was no doubt instrumental in helping create the plan to fight Sukuna, and even though she's miles away right now and needs binoculars to see, her bird strikes offer great long distance help. It would be nice if she fired more of them though, seems like it's been a little bit. Also, Wee Wee's teleportation technique was key to not only the whole Culling Game arc for people like Maki, he's a perfect way to ensure our dead members' corpses aren't messed with in any way. Sukuna denies Shoko being able to bring people back from the dead, and since it would take her too long to heal people sporadically, Shoko can't really do much to help mid-battle. Besides Shoko, Ino Takako is another member of the defense force who is probably biting biting off a little bit more than they can chew being here. But everyone in the community has undeniable stock in this man right now for some reason. Assumedly using his spirit medium curse technique, in some way, shape, or form to communicate with Nanami Kento, Ino was able to imbue the 7-3 curse technique into Nanami's treasured blunt blade and turn it into a curse tool. If we are to believe Kenjaku's story about Prison Realm, it can be assumed most, if not all, curse tools are created using the life spirit of another sorcerer. This follows suit, considering Yorozu was unable to create cursed weapons with her construction ability up until sacrificing what was left of her life force to recreate one for Sukuna. Ino Takako was one of the first people confirmed by Sukuna to have leveled up significantly in the last month. But despite the stat increase and Nanami's curse tool, Ino's someone we need to see more of until he can be considered a real asset. He could definitely be hiding something under that ski mask though. To be honest with you, most of these characters are just support or in the background. The real opponents that should actually be able to throw hands with Sukuna are as followed. We've got Okotsu, Yuta, and Rika who just showed up, but the biggest problem with this is the fact we already knew Yuta couldn't step in during Sukuna's fight with Gojo. Both Yuta and Hakari, who we'll be getting to in a minute, were told specifically by Gojo not to interfere unless his power level dropped to below Gojo's level. Even at the lowest point of the battle, Hakari admitted both of the participants still had a huge gap in strength between the four of them, which is enough to convince me Yuta may not be ready to face the King of Curses all by himself, even if he does have Rika, the Queen of Curses, by his side. There is a possibility that since defeating Kenjaku in battle, Yuta may have received a big boost in power from devouring the brain and taken some of his curse techniques, while Okotsu with gravity manipulation, or even worse, curse spirit manipulation, is pretty terrifying. The bigger question is, where has our strongest physical fighter and practically almost invisible woman Maki Zenin been? The new manifestation of humanity's maximum output of power has been out of the picture since comforting Yuta after the death of Gojo. Said to now rival the strength of Toji Fushiguro, Maki Zenin's fight capabilities were enough to throw hands back and forth with Sukuna right after he possessed Megami. Sukuna was impressed, and although unable to use most of his curse technique, was glad Arame dedicated more ice to freezing her than the boring Itadori Yuji. This was, unfortunately, only a 15-finger Sukuna, meaning the King of Curses has powered up multiple levels since then, and with 4 arms now and an extra mouth for incantations, it's an even harder fight for Maki. The soul-splitting blade may be a huge problem in accidentally hurting Megami while Sukuna's inside of him as well. Maki Zenin's invisibility due to having no cursed energy was used against Sukuna during the previous fight between them. She was able to pull up on Sukuna in close range without him noticing once, which they may be hoping to happen again. Maki might be lying in wait, ready to snipe Sukuna's head off the moment his guard is down. And if this is the case, there may have already been 2 great moments that Maki missed to step in if she really wanted to do this. For one, most recently, when Sukuna was spaced out deep in thought after Higuruma got carried away. But the most heinous example, I think, is when Sukuna was stuck inside of Higuruma Hiromi's deadly sentencing. Inside of Higuruma's domain expansion, violence is strictly forbidden, to the point a victim can't even activate a counter domain or anti-domain measure. If this is the case, and Sukuna was locked in court, wouldn't Maki have just been able to slip into the domain undetected? And wouldn't she also be immune to the no violence clause? We already know, as someone with no cursed energy, Maki can not only invite herself into a person's domain unannounced, she can't be sensed by the person at all. Maki completely ignores this person's domain conditions, as shown when Naoya Zenin's one-hit kill ability didn't work on Maki while she was inside the domain. Naoya couldn't even find out where she was until she already stabbed him. So if all of this is true, wouldn't this have been the best time for Maki to sneak decapitate Sukuna since he was completely defenseless? Again, with the soul-splitting blade, Sukuna couldn't even endure the blow, but most likely, the reason is we are still trying to save Megami. And that might be why Maki hasn't participated in the fight. She's a final resort, hoping she doesn't have to be used, because she knows once she enters the fray, Fushiguro is long gone. Maki's ability to enter domains and ignore them may actually be her downfall in this fight though, as with Sukuna's domain expansion being open without a barrier, Maki can unconsensually be dragged into the space where Malevolent Shrine is hitting, since there's nothing to trap her or separate Maki from the realm of slashes. Also, with Sukuna able to dictate his slashes to attack quote-unquote inanimate objects, just like in Shibuya when he demolishes buildings and material objects besides just the humans, Maki being unrecognized by the domain does not matter. These two entirely separate concepts have developed outside of each other, but it's interesting how this is one of the only surefire scenarios Maki could be ended in with little to no fight at all. I'm not saying this is for sure gonna happen, but of course, it's just an interesting coincidence. On a brighter side to things, one of the coolest duos of the series that would be a great tag team against Sukuna are the two main characters. Itadori Yuji, compared to everybody else, seems to be the person who's grown the most in this short amount of time. Not only is the boy able to use reverse curse technique now on an advanced level, his unbreakable will has even impressed Sukuna enough to consider Yuji a main course. In my opinion, Gege Akutami has been waiting for a purely Yuji-centric chapter to reveal everything that Itadori has been cooking up over this month. Kamo Noritoshi and Choso, God I hope Choso's okay, forgot about him, have obviously been training Itadori in aspects of Kamo clan fighting style. Whether this means for sure Itadori can use blood manipulation or not is unknown. The piercing blood fired at Sukuna makes it seem pretty suspicious. On top of the fact Yuji had a whole month to not only study Yuki Tsukumo's research on the soul, he was confirmed able to devour as many cursed objects as he could to continually grow in power. It's unclear if this means Itadori devoured the remaining death paintings, but all will hopefully be revealed once Itadori has more spotlight. I'm just hoping Choso doesn't have to die for Yuji to get more development, because it's not looking good for our best brother right now. Yuji is a huge anomaly, but I'm sure he'll get his moment to shine. Meanwhile, our other brute type fighter, Hakari Kinji, is off battling Arame, and it's a pretty even matchup on both sides. Hakari is the perfect person to go up against an ice elemental sorcerer, as shown when even if full limbs become frozen, Hakari can just smash them and regrow. However, Hakari's jackpot doesn't last forever, and now that Arame is going all out against him, who's to say if Hakari can land another one? And despite Hakari's healing being confirmed to be stronger than both Gojo's and Sukuna's, if Arame is able to fully encase Hakari in ice and he crumbles to tiny pieces, is that something he can survive or heal from? Also, with the level of sorcerer Arame has to be to stand at Sukuna's side of all people, it would be embarrassing if they didn't have access to domain expansion. Meaning, if Arame tries to lay out their own domain, what happens if Hakari gets into a domain clash? Does he automatically win because of his special typing, or does it go deeper than that? Arame is a serious threat, so thankfully we have someone like Hakari to fend them off and keep Arame occupied, as a Sukuna-Arame team up would be a scary sight. However, having Kinji Hakari in the actual fight with Sukuna would be a huge help. Having a newly reinvigorated and jackpotted Hakari arriving to the scene after defeating Arame would turn the tables significantly. Now, that's obviously considering everyone else is fighting all at once, as Hakari against Heianera Sukuna is still a very much losing battle for the gambler. Although he's essentially unkillable for 4 minutes, let's not act like Kashimo wasn't able to keep up with Hakari in base. The same Kashimo who got diced to pieces not even an hour earlier. Sukuna is able to match Hakari in domain expansion, in hand-to-hand combat. In fact, Sukuna could probably exceed Hakari in both aspects, let alone Hakari being anything more than an invincible berserker that Sukuna just can't get rid of as easily as the others. I'm sure Sukuna would find Hakari impressive at first, but it seems like a trait he would eventually get bored of, similar to Yuji's indomitable will, opting to kill Hakari as soon as possible once his enjoyment wanes. But this is exactly why Hakari is honestly the best team member of the anti-Sukuna defense force. Simply because, as one-on-one, sure, Hakari can't win, but as pure backup and the ability to act as a nuisance, bully Sukuna with his fellow sorcerers, and then dip once he becomes vulnerable is a great strategy. When you combine Hakari's huge physical strength and the fact he probably could offer a decent back and forth with Sukuna with his unkillable nature, He can distract the King of Curses for recovery time or charging up critical attacks for his friends. And that's ultimately what I've been trying to get at this entire video. Alone, every single sorcerer in this ragtag team of warriors is inadequate when it comes to Sukuna. Even Gojo, the honored one, couldn't defeat the King of Curses head on. But when all of our heads are put together, fused into one large wave of shared ideals and skill, just maybe the demon can be put down. Combining the restless gambler with the curse of the Zenin clan, adding into the mix the two children cursed by love, and finishing off with the cog that continues to make this wheel of operations turn. We just might be able to defeat the man who has done everything he could to be alone. This is the generation that Gojo left behind. The thing that Gojo saw was the team of monsters he helped build, not one single person or entity, but everyone working together, a thing neither him or Sukuna could ever try to understand. And now, with not just saving Megami and ending this 1,000-year-old curse on the line, but also the fate of the world and the Great Merger, it's ever more clear how failure is not an option. The only question remaining is, just how do we rise to the occasion? Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you making it this far into the video, and feel free to leave any thoughts you might have down below in the comments. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to keep seeing more of this content in your feed. Check out an end screen video if you want to continue your binge, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.